Welcome to this episode of Great Practice, Great Life. I'm Steve Riley. I'm your host on behalf of Atticus, and we're here today with the world famous, a great friend of Atticus, a great friend of mine, Robert Rowe. So, Robert, welcome to the show.
Oh, thank you so much. I'm, as longtime fan, guest a while back, but glad to be here again.
I'm great to have you here, but it's always a pleasure to work with you in any way, shape, or form. You were really the inspiration for this direction. But just so people who don't know you can get a
Mm,
sense, I'm just going to hit some highlights about your background, because really the purpose of today is to have you help lawyers, teams, marketing assistants, and law firms think about how to grow their practice. And you're a world renowned expert in the topic of content marketing, which can mean about anything. So
right, yeah.
it's a very, very broad topic. So you were active as a partner in the Content Marketing Institute. I think you still hold the title of chief troublemaker there.
Yeah.
You have written, I believe, 5 books. I don't know how many blogs. You are the co-host of This Old Marketing, which is a massive marketing podcast, or really a YouTube show that is sponsored by HubSpot that you've been doing for years. You actually hold a unique position in LinkedIn. I believe it's the #1 content marketing voice. I think you have like 35,000 followers on LinkedIn, something insane like that.
I think that's what we have, and that's what marketers and lawyers have in common, right? You can't shut us up. And so we are prolific by nature, by our, you know, everything we do. And it's also why I've seen content marketing become such an important component of the way that lawyers take themselves to market, not only because they have a natural talent for delivering value through the stories that they tell and the content that they deliver, but also because it's just more interesting. The biggest challenge that I see with law firms today and marketing is nobody wants to do it because it's the classic, and it's the reason that I got into marketing and content marketing specifically, full stop, was because I didn't want to get up every day and sell. I hated selling. It felt icky. It felt weird. But getting up every day and creating valuable content, whether it's thought leadership or entertainment or inspiration or doing something valuable that an audience loves, was much more interesting. It was a much more interesting way to get out of bed every day. And the fact that it also helps me market my business is sort of an added bonus there. So it's the kind of marketing that we want to do, that we want to do, and that our customers, our clients want to consume.
This is the key point that I think is so important to the legal industry, to lawyers who are trying to grow. And I think it's probably the core element of your most recent book, Content Marketing Strategy.
Mm,
So take a moment and, if you could, and I know it's a lot to ask because it's a fantastic book, and I'll put in the show notes where people can get more information about the book and actually buy the book. I highly recommend it. But could you distinguish just for a minute how you see content marketing sitting on top of a solo small firm practice? Like, how do you see that? In take in particular your work in the most recent book, Content Marketing Strategy. I hope you understand the
sure.
question.
Sure, I do understand the question. And so in just about every professional service, but let's look at lawyers in particular. I would argue it's really across every professional aspirational service, whether it's medicine, whether it's accounting, whether it's law, whether it's, specialty service. The goal is trust, right? The goal, every time I'm trying to convince, because look, many people don't want to hire a lawyer. There's in many cases, it's very much like a doctor. I don't ever have a desire to go buy one, right? I'm not gonna It's not an iPhone, and it's not a movie ticket, and it's not my favorite sports team. So if I'm purchasing the services of a lawyer or a healthcare provider or an accountant, it's something that I have to do. But that have to do is also built on a idea of trust. I have to trust that person to take care of what it is I need to get taken care of. And so really the winner of any kind of sales in that particular vein is going to be that the person that establishes the deepest level of trust first. In other words, if I can keep the trust with a particular client, much more likely to win that client and their business than someone who doesn't. And so the question is, all right, well, how do I start to demonstrate? Because you can't build trust. Trust is only built through demonstration of trust. In other words, you can't convince me that you're more trustworthy. The only way to build trust is to demonstrate trust, to be trustworthy. And so by delivering you great teaching, great advice, great help, great inspiration, value through the content that I give you, now I'm demonstrating that I'm trustworthy because I'm giving you value where you didn't either expect it or you certainly didn't expect it for free. And so now that I've established that trust, that engagement, now I can have a conversation with you and I can have a conversation about what is it that you actually need. And once I understand what it is you need and that trust is already there, much better and easier for me to sell you something. Because at that point, I'm not selling you something. I'm just drawing you to the inevitable conclusion that I'm the right person to solve your problem.
I want you to explain. It's one of the big things that had me shift my thinking around marketing, uh, the concept of audience building. Just take a moment because that was a
Yeah.
fantastic audience build strategy. And if you could just explain what
Yeah.
that means.
100%. So this goes a little bit back to what I was just mentioning with the idea of Red Bull. So if you start to think about, one of the things that we get wrapped around the axle is our clients are only those who pay us money for our services. But as we can broaden that out a little bit and to say that our clients are really people who can connect us to people who want to pay for our services, you start to think about them a slightly different way as audiences instead of just leads or opportunities or, clients. So think about that for a moment, and again, think back to the Red Bull idea, which is if I can start to do something educational or inspirational, and I can create a subscribed audience, that which wants to hear from me. In other words, they're subscribing to what it is I do, and that might be an email, it might be a blog, it might be a magazine, it might be of an event series. It could be anything you can think of that they want to hear from me on a regular basis. Two, they're engaged in what it is I do. Now, if I can start to build that over time, 100, 200, 300, 1,000 people in my community, in my general market area, so many of them are never going to purchase from me. But also, it becomes a network effect where those people, when they are asked about who should I get for this, where should I get this, where should I get this value, all of a sudden, I'm now top of mind for referrals and I'm top of mind for them forwarding off and building the audience again. So it's a flywheel effect where you start to get that first 100 and then the 100 becomes very easy because they start saying, hey, this is a thing that I subscribe to. You should subscribe to it as well. I'll give you one quick example of that just as a story. So there's a guy, I live in Los Angeles, and there is up in Santa Barbara, where we have a little vacation home at the Santa Barbara beach. There is a roofing guy. His name is Jack the roofing guy. And he's had his roofing company for, maybe 30, 40 years. And he has about 100 people who work for him, and they basically fix roofs for a living. And he does some advertising and he does some leaflets and that he leaves in your door and all that kind of stuff. But his main marketing effort is he has a passion for weather. He loves the weather. He fancied himself a weatherman when he was growing up, and he loves the weather. Interestingly, he is really good at it. I mean, down to, and he's a legend now in Santa Barbara because Jack the roofing guy can predict when it's going to rain because he's really geeky in weather. He can say, oh, at Butterfly Beach, it's going to start raining at 11:15 a.m. But, by the time you get out there at 3 p.m., it's going to be bright and sunny. So get out there and do your thing. Now, you can immediately see how his skill with the weather has an immediate sort of attention or brand alignment with what he does for a living. Roofing. He fixes roofs that are leaky. And so he has built an email list of more than 30,000 people in the Santa Barbara area that love his weather forecast. And it's his main source of leads because all those people, when they have a leaky roof, Who do they call? They call the guy who's amazing with the web.